What's the plan? What's the life plan that brought you into the United Nations? If I had a penny for every time. I never had a life plan. Have you got a life plan? I'm not a big fan of plans. I hear in a plan the echo of a command. I'm command allergic. I've never responded very well to instruction. Think about the essence of command. Let me try this. Ready. Fire. Aim. Ready, aim, fire. Fire, aim, ready. You know, I'm very suspicious of commands. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights tells us questions are better. We have a right to question. We have a right to dissent. We have a right to disrupt. We have a right to dance. I believe we need new questions, not more command. And I believe we need a new order of things. There's no place for absolute obedience to absolute command. Ready, aim, fire? What if we tried some questions instead? Fire, what burns in you? What brings you alive? I mean, you know when you're hungry because you feed it. You know when you're thirsty because you drink. We all long to belong, to be loved, and we search for it. But when you see cruelty, unfairness, injustice, when you are touched by hate, don't you burn? I remember the burn in me, and I recall its ignition in my 17-year-old self, many decades. All right, many decades ago, when I was 17. And the multiple realizations that somehow I was expected to accept without question that it was predetermined for skin pigment to decide your worth and opportunity in our world. Predetermined, without question, that genitalia would determine who washed the dishes, who drove the family car, who preached in the mosque or the cathedral, who ran the business, who led the government, who issued the commands. That somehow, I don't know, the arbitrariness of the faith into which I was born determined that I, not you, I would be saved. That I was chosen and clean and pure. The dumb luck of where I was born would decide, I don't know, my rights in this world. That it was preordained to hunt down consensual love between adults, and with much more ferocity than ever has been hunted down, intimate violence. My 17-year-old self, I'll admit, was outraged. I had been sold the fictions of such a false command, a furrow-browed, mean-fisted, thin-lipped, pale-faced command. I was revolted. I revolt. And poof, there came the flame. The flame to which I try to answer even now, to that 17-year-old self, rough and not ready as she was. Even now, for are we not born to a sentence? No. We're not born into life's sentence, we're born into life's volume. And there is the fire. I mean, don't believe me. Many people don't. Think instead of Leonard Cohen. He sang it this way: "You want it darker? We kill the flame." We don't need it any darker. It's dark enough. We need much brighter flame, and we need far truer aim. What's your life purpose? What's your aim? To whom are you accountable? From whom do you draw the story that you wish to see evolve into a fundamentally different conclusion? I know where I draw mine. She was 14. She was a 14-year-old mother of 2. When I met her, she had a baby on her knee, a child at her feet. The baby, she explained, was that of the man whose violence she was now in hiding from, her violent partner. The child was the result of rape at the hands of her uncle. At age 10, she had sought to terminate that pregnancy only to be met by the government's threat of incarceration, even for the asking. She cried throughout. It was enormously difficult for her to speak out, but she cried. So she cried, and she cried for the men who had betrayed her, men who should have loved her first and only. She cried for the faceless government and its disregard for her 10-year-old self and her 10-year-old body. She cried for that which was stolen from her, her right to education. For she had dreamt of remaining in school. She had dreamt of being a nurse. It was enormously difficult for her to speak up, to speak out. But she explained why she did. She said, "I speak so that people like you will make a difference, so that no other girl need go through what I have been put through. People like you. People like me." I have never stood ready and armed on the cruel contact lines of war. I've never taken up arms ready to defend family and friend from conflicts, callous cruelty. But I have stood at the end of a gynecologist's bed, cradling the head of a woman as a doctor has poked and probed the sites of her rapist's penetration in search of proof of her story. I've held her hand and murmured small assurances against her cries as they've, what did they do? They plucked, they snipped, they teared, as they sought her consent to, albeit clinical, penetration in pursuit of the search of proof of criminal penetration. And it strikes me we are being prepared for the wrong things. We are so ready for profession, for post, for pay, for promotion, for privilege. We are not ready enough for those who would deny, dehumanize, humiliate, denigrate, diminish. We must be readier to use our privilege than to protect it. I'm no hero, but I can't be silent. Others far, far braver than me have not been silent. I don't want to tell the story. I don't want to tell you the story of the child who was raped. I don't want to tell the story of another child who saw her grandmother burned to death. I don't want to tell the story of the mother raped by the soldiers, by the patriots, by the believers, by the infidels, by the leaders, by the followers, by the executives, by the pros and the contras. I don't want to tell that a traditional leader, a defender of land and livelihood is now slaughtered. I don't want to tell that a journalist is silenced not once, not twice, but forever. I don't want to have to tell that a young man is shot down for the colour of his skin and the colour of his poverty. I don't want to tell that the grandmother knew the child was being raped. I don't want to tell that story. I just have to be ready. Are we ready? Others were far readier, far braver. And thanks to those ready to disrupt life's dehumanizing commands, we have much to be grateful for. For without their strength, their flame and their aim, no end to slavery, no liberation for the colonized, no universal suffrage, no dignity for people living with disabilities, no antiretroviral drugs for people living with HIV/AIDS, no rights for women in marriage, no rights for the children in the family, no revelation of the sexual violence of high priest, of culture, church, commerce. Are we ready? For we are not born into life's sentence. We are born into life's volume. Ursula Le Guin, a great literary disruptor, warned us this. She said, "The time has come when we will be wanting people who can see through our fear-stricken societies and our obsessive technologies, visionaries of a larger reality, realists of a larger reality." Are we ready? Fire, aim, ready? To be realists of a more generous, a more compassionate, a more just, a more inclusive reality. Rosa Parks, she was ready. She was ready to sit at the front of the bus. Malala Yousafzai was ready. She was ready to be educated, no matter the gun or the fist. Nelson Mandela, 27 years in prison, walks out ready not for revenge, ready for peace. No, I'm no hero. I've never raised a gun, but still I hear the commander's drum on my heart and in my gut, and I'm revolted. I revolt. I dissent. Leonard Cohen also said, watch out for the cracks in life's command, the cracks in those cruel life commands, for that's where the light gets in. Are we ready? Fire, aim, ready. FAR. Ready to go far, to go farther for a more generous, a more just, a more inclusive, a larger reality. Are we ready? Ready to do far more, to lower the fists of hate, to extend the hand of compassion? Are we ready to stand up? Stand up! Ready to stand up. Stand up. Stand up for for which there is no acceptable alternative, that born we all are, free and equal in dignity and in rights. Thank you.